Welcome. I'm David Phillips, and I'm the CEO of Estate Planning Specialist. And this is our second podcast for our series, The Art of Legacy Planning. This will be our second in that series. And today we're going to focus on what is going on in Congress right now in reference to the Build Back Better Act that was championed by President Biden and has made it all the way through the House. So we know now what the House has laid out for us, and a lot of surprises, as you can imagine. And those of you that have been following us, you know that in our Series 1, and you can go back onto our website, epmez.com, and you can watch Series 1. And in that, we talked about what came out of the House Ways and Means Committee, and it was scary. There was so many changes, especially in reference to estate planning strategies and tools that we have been used for years, decades. And a lot of those things were actually in jeopardy. A lot of those strategies were in jeopardy. Well, I'm glad to report that most of those things were taken off the table. And it's good. That's good news. The scary news, though, is that those were on the table. And some of those are going to end up coming back on the table at some point in time. And we're going to talk about that today. Today we have with us our regular guest, Todd Phillips, who is the president of Estate Planning Specialist, and my son, of course. And we have Rick Durfee. Rick is with us today. Hi, Rick.
Hey.
And Rick is the founder and senior partner of the Durfee Law Group, our favorite law firm, estate planning law firm by far. And Melodie Durfee, who is the president of the Legacy Global Foundation and director of that. And so we're glad to have both of you with us today, and Todd as well. And we're going to chat about what happened in the House, what we have that's laid out now by the House of Representatives was passed. It didn't pass by a large margin. In fact, it barely squeaked by. I think it was like 220 to 211 or something like that. And the only reason why it ended up passing is because of all of the what do we call it?
Horse trading?
The horse trading, thanks, Rick. The horse trading that they did, and all the special interest groups that got their say as to what they wanted. And so that's where we are. Now, it still has not been debated in the Senate. So today is November 30th. We're recording this today. We're not going to broadcast this until a couple days from now. But it most likely won't be debated in the Senate for a couple of days, or maybe a week or two, depending on how aggressive they are in getting this done. President Biden has sworn, and Charles Schumer, has said that it's going to absolutely be signed into law before Christmas. So we'll see. It has to get through the Senate. And there are two major blockades there. Senator Manchin and Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema from Arizona. So they're blocking this, and they're saying they're not going to sign it. And there are justifications they claim for not approving this. So we'll see. We got some horse trading, some bartering that's going to go on, and but what do we have right now? What the heck do we have in place? So I'm going to start off first of all and talk to Rick about income tax. What do we see in the income tax world as far as this bill is concerned?
If you were going to guess, are taxes going up or down? What would be your guess? I think they're going up. In fact, when politicians say we're going to lower taxes, don't believe them. Yeah. So they're particularly targeting trusts, and particularly what we call the credit shelter trust or the bypass trust, an estate planning trust. They think they're going to raise a lot of revenue by taxing that trust, and that's a trust commonly used to reduce the estate tax liability, a different tax. So because we're trying to avoid one tax, we're going to end up paying another tax, is kind of how it works. But I have to comment that a lot of times that tax is a consequence of a poorly designed trust. There are a lot of workarounds. And so if you have some A/B trust planning going on in your estate, it would be in one's best interest to have that looked at by somebody who has some ideas on, well, what can we do? How can we fix this? How can we make it so we're not going to end up paying that tax? Because there are workarounds.
And with regard to income tax brackets, they're actually going to stay about the same as they are right now. So there may be a little bit of an increase, and there's also this net investment income tax that's going to be added to big incomes of 450 and up. About 3.8% is going to be added to that. But the actual brackets, which I think is kind of cool, we still get to play that, that income tax bracket management, especially for clients that want to do Roth conversions this year. Push the money into that now. Get up to that 329 area, and then next year it's going to go up just a tad. I've already seen my tax facts sent me my sheet with my tax brackets for next year, so it's going to go up a little bit.
The brackets are staying the same, but they're taxing some things differently.
Exactly.
And raising some taxes
I'm talking about straight income tax, though. Right. You're right. You're exactly right. Yeah. And what about capital gains tax? What did they decide to do on that?
Glory hallelujah, they were threatening several things with capital gains. They were just going to take away the step up in basis when a person dies. And that's still something, they keep bringing that back over and over again. They've taken a run at eliminating that more than once. And they actually did for a year, but it comes, the step up keeps coming back. They were also talking about trying to tax unrealized gain, which was attacked on a constitutional level as something you just can't do. And I find it really interesting that the politicians engage in inflationary practices which drive prices up, and then they tax you on that so-called gain, which is really just inflation. Most of what we call capital gain is inflation. There's a difference between starting a company and building a company from nothing and making it into a worthwhile, productive company that provides some useful product or service, and just having something that you used to pay 10 for, now you pay 15 or 20 for. The hamburger that used to be $5, it's now $12, is still the same hamburger. It's not worth more, it just has a higher price.
Yeah, good point. And well, Melodie, on that, on the capital gains tax, I know that we talked quite a bit on Series 1 about charitable remainder trust and using those to avoid capital gains tax. And we weren't really that concerned about the 39% capital gains tax, were we? If we keep it at 20, is it still a viable strategy that we need to be implementing?
It's still a viable strategy. One thing about keeping it at 20, assuming it stays there, is that it continues to make it more attractive to pay the capital gains tax than, say, income tax. So there are certain types of structures in giving where they can be taxed on a worst in, best out case, as opposed to some being taxed on a best in, worst out in terms of the taxation of the income or the basis from those assets. That's a whole piece I could go into, but I'd say in particular with capital gains, the asset class that I would be most concerned about on capital gains right now would be crypto. Crypto, the IRS doesn't know how they're going to treat it. They know they want to tax it. They know they want to track it. That's where there's been such significant gains that people are holding, that people are realizing in an effort to diversify, in an effort to take that off the table. Currently, the IRS's attitude towards crypto is to treat it like an alternative asset for the purposes of donation, but like cash for taxation. So you can do this with other asset types, but crypto is one of the particularly advantageous asset classes to do some planning around the capital gains treatment.
In particular, the charitable remainder trust is extremely powerful to be able to take that crypto, diversify it. And I find it amusing, actually, people that are into crypto, sometimes the toughest conversation is, you should own something besides crypto. That's a tough move for some of them, but really they should own something other than crypto. And
Especially with the taxation
Right,
cutting.
that's-
Capital gains taxes hitting crypto, other taxes will follow.
Okay, Todd, a question for you is, I understand that in the Build Better Back Act, they have specifically language about IRAs, and they're calling it a Mega IRA. So what's the definition of a Mega IRA as far as the BBBA is concerned, and what are the rules going to be if this passes?
Yeah, so they're talking about anyone that has an IRA worth more than 10 million, and that's a combination of IRAs, Roth IRAs, all qualified accounts, and
401ks.
401ks. Mm-hmm. So if it's more than that, the 10 million, then they're going to add some extra required minimum distributions. So, for example, but it's not going to start until December 31st of 2028. So we've got some time.
So a couple presidents between here and there, and some changes will probably happen before that anyway. So that's kind of out there. Yeah.
All right, so that is the 2028. So it seems like a long ways out. But if you have a $4 million IRA today, and maybe you hit it rich, maybe you get some crypto or something that's boosted up to 10 million, it could be an issue come 2028. And it looks like everyone is on board with this so far. I know it has to go through the Senate. But and if you're worth 20 million, then you have to make sure all of it is out.
Yeah. So the way I understand that, if it's 20 million and up at that point, so let's say it's 30 million. The way I understand it is that the rest of that over 20, so 30 minus 20 would be 10 million, would have to be taken out and income taxed.
Right.
In that given year. So that would be a good day. You're up to 30 million, but it would also be a very sad day for taxes. So
right.
Yeah, bad tax.
Yeah. So and it's not going to probably affect too many people, but those that are fortunate to have that much in qualified, which we do see the combination of the IRAs, of 401ks, and Roth could exceed that. It could become a factor. So the idea is start to get it out of your qualified accounts now.
Well, and like you said, it could grow though. So your IRA can grow and magnify. Okay, perfect. Well, let's move into another direction. Same taxation direction, but I want to talk just briefly, and I'm actually going to be the one that addresses this one, is the tax that's going to be due for inherited IRAs, and that hasn't changed. And that's not going to change. We have a law in place called the Secure Act. And the special reports that we wrote, the bombshell battle plan that you'll be able to get by calling the office or going to our website at no cost. Just go to the website and get that. It explains the rules of engagement, what was instituted in the Secure Act in 2020. And the key to that is that you need to do some strategic planning so that when your children inherit these IRAs and your grandchildren inherit the IRAs, that the tax liability that they're going to have to pay over a 10-year period of time, called the 10-year rule, that you have means for them to do that without having to liquidate your assets. And so we have some strategies that are explained in the bombshell battle plan that will help you do that. Second thing that I want to talk about is the SALT tax. And Rick, I know you know quite a bit about that, so let's just kind of bring it out. What in the heck is SALT? I mean, I love salt, put salt on everything, but what really is that?
Yeah, so I'm going to look back just a hair. I just want to tell you that I advise my clients with their IRAs on that inherited IRA issue that they should have an exit plan. They should have a strategy for when and how are we getting it out, and leaving it to your heirs is the least tax efficient way to get out of those plans. So back to the SALT thing, that's state and local taxes. Historically, those were deductible. Trump put a cap on that. That penalized states that have high local taxes, which tend to be blue states. And so they felt like they were being picked on. And what the proposed legislation does now, it reinstates what I think it is the $80,000 cap. So it goes back up to the higher cap.
Could, yeah, I mean, if it ends up the way it is right now.
Right. If the House version gets through the Senate unscathed, then the irony there is, even though this benefits states which may support Mr. Bernie Sanders politically, he's opposed to this because it favors the ultra wealthy who are paying those big state
So
local taxes.
it isn't a tax raiser. It's not going to raise any revenue.
Right.
Right. But it's basically going to give us back some. And I was reading somewhere, I forget exactly where it was, that they were encouraging us to pay all of our state taxes and everything right now so we get the deduction. That's a little scary because it might not pass.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that counsel, and I had the same. How confident are you that the politicians are actually going to get this bill done by the end of the year? And they may. They say they're going to. So if they do what they say they're going to do.
Maybe you could do, maybe on December 31st, you could pay all your state and local taxes.
Yeah, pay all your
get
property
the
taxes.
deduction, yeah.
I just want to interject there. You commented that it was bringing money back. In reality, all this does is the change in the SALT deductions means a change in whether the federal government or the state government is getting the tax revenue. For the taxpayer, you're still paying the tax.
Well, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, and there are some ways in which we can kind of keep our income down, and therefore, other than and not have to even do that.
Sure,
So,
not making money is always an
well,
effective
not making
tax
money and then
reduction
setting up a
strategy.
family bank.
Of
Family
course,
bank
the family bank,
strategy
yes.
and not have to pay taxes on
Yeah.
that. So okay, let's shift now to federal estate tax, because that's kind of the as you've heard, I've heard you say many times in your talks at the Money Show and other places that that's a moving target, and it really doesn't impact a lot of folks, especially now with the exclusion at 11.7. So what's the scoop on estate taxes? Did they get their way?
Yeah, so the bottom line is the threat of reducing that exclusion to some number, and a number of different options were thrown out there, 3.5 or 1 million. That's off the table in the House bill. Again, the Senate could put it back. So my perception is that the bill we've had for the last few years here is the best bill we've ever had in several decades of doing this kind of planning, largely because we could plan on it. We know what it is, and we can then make projections, and we can do illustrations, and we can think through, well, I'm here today and I'm going to be there tomorrow, so how should I plan for that? When the politicians keep changing that target, oh yeah, we don't like that rule, we're going to give you a different rule, it makes planning really awkward and cumbersome. So I'm frankly relieved that they left it alone. It's still, that 11.7 sunsets in 2026. It's still going to go back to the 6 million number. And that was a budget device so that they could say that they weren't spending more than they were bringing in. They had to have the exclusion sunset so they could claim that revenue for their projections. So I think a lot hinges on whether that will in fact sunset or be continued on the next two election cycles.
You know, and we'll see here in the next little bit if the Senate, agrees and they allow this. We know something's going to pass.
Yeah.
Something's going to get signed.
And our friends on the left still want to bring that down.
Bring it down.
They want to
Right.
tax those rich people.
Right, and which also brings up the lifetime gift exclusion, because we know that, and as we've talked about before in Series 1, about the unification of the gift tax and the estate tax being at 11, both of them being 11.7, which is crazy.
Right.
I mean, in my 49 years of planning, I've never seen anything like this, because the lifetime gift exclusion was never over $1 million in my whole career, and then all of a sudden overnight it's
Right.
11
Right.
million, now 11.7.
And a lot of, I want to just interject a little explanation here because I find a lot of people, even frankly, a lot of lawyers and CPAs don't get this. The gift exclusion is, to get that, you have to make the gift while you're alive.
Right.
The estate tax exclusion happens when you're dead. And they have been a different number for decades. That's been the norm. So
And
when
who-
they
and
were,
who, and wait, and who pays the gift tax?
well, the gift tax is paid by the giver.
That's right. And
Oh,
who pays the estate
The
tax?
estate tax is paid by the dead guy. It still
Well, yeah.
comes out of the estate.
It comes out of the estate, paid by the kids.
But to have it unified, it was wonderful because, okay, especially for a large estate, let's grandfather in this gift. Let's make the gift now so that future appreciation in an inflationary market, future income accumulates outside the taxable estate. So even if a $1 million, what do you think in an inflationary market? I've had people that in 2012 gifted $1 million that today, because they were prudent and wise, that's doubled and doubled and doubled. Sometimes doubled 2 or 3 or 4 times.
Well, that's part of why, regardless of what it becomes in the future, making gifts now with any excess, with the unification, means that those assets can grow and appreciate outside of the taxable estate.
Right. So
Regardless of estate level.
right. So even so, well, what should I do about this question? Even though that threat is off the table, at least in the current version of the bill, if you have plans underway to use that lifetime exclusion, keep going with that. Move forward, press on.
Right.
Take it,
keep the
grandfather
pedal
it in.
down.
Right.
Let's go.
Right.
Let's get, and in fact, I'm encouraging our clients that are coming in even at this hour, this November 30th, to go forward, to get this done, to get your planning done, and make these transfers, and get the transfers done now while you can, because, and as Melodie said, the Senate could change this. They could just say, okay, well, we don't want the unification or whatever, or we want the exclusion to be 6 million. And then you weren't able to do these moves, or they could do it some other time. So
Right. I'm just going to comment though. In the first video that we did, I said, hey, we still have bandwidth. If you want to do this
Yeah.
before the end
Yeah,
of
your
the year,
bandwidth is
call us. We can get it
tricky.
done. Now, I'd have to make my staff work on Christmas Day. I'd have to pay them whatever, triple time. So I'm going to charge you triple time. I'll still do it, but understand, I'm going to charge you triple.
Yeah.
But if you got it in process, if it was going, keep moving.
With how it's looking, for those that it's not critical by year end, keep planning in the first quarter of next
Right.
year so that you are set, because
Right.
that option remains.
Right. So even if you're not going to take it this year, take it next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get it grandfathered in.
And do it early.
Okay, which brings us up to our annual exclusion. So we have the lifetime exclusion. We can do the full 11.7, gift it, get it away. But what about the annual exclusion? So the annual exclusion, we know, has been at $15,000 for the last couple of years. Next year, it's going to go up
Right.
to 16.
It's indexed.
So, my suggestion, and I'm going to suggest to our viewers today, that they take that exclusion, that is at least the annual one, and
Right.
they use that, they leverage it. So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm married, have 2 kids, and I get $15,000 for each kid. So that's $30,000 I can give to my children. My wife can do the same exact thing. So for this year, 2021, if I do this before year end, I have to do this before
Right.
the 31st. If I wait till the 1st, I can't do it. If I write the check on the 1st,
goes away.
doesn't-
It expires.
It doesn't work. So urgency, you have to do that. And if I do that now, and I take that and put it into an insurance policy, a joint and survivor insurance policy, and I've got a table here that we're going to show you on the screen. A 65-year-old couple, pretty good, in good health. That if they did that over a 7-year period of time, so they did the $60,000 for 7 years, $420,000. Immediately and perpetually, they create $2 million. It's a 5-to-1 return. A 75-year-old couple, same thing, $1.2 million. An 80-year-old couple, $900,000. So that kind of leverage is critical. So you take $1 and you create $5. And they can use that $5. That's tax-free. Now, question for you, Rick, and I know, Melodie, you want to say something, but Rick, where should I put, what should I do? Should I put it into a trust, or should I let the kids
So
own
yeah,
it?
you want that life insurance owned by a trust. I'm just going to comment.
Okay.
This strategy that you're talking about, combined with some of the other things we've talked about, like an IRA exit strategy or grandfathering in lifetime exclusions and all those kind of things, often these strategies are compounding. They're cumulative. You want to do some together. So yeah, and we're going to talk about Grantor Trust here in a minute. Absolutely, you should take advantage of that lifetime or that annual exclusion so you don't lose it, but you want to do it in a way that's smart. So this is my metaphor. If you're going to give money to your kids, you can stuff $100 bills in baggies and drive by their house and throw it out the car window and hope they find it in the morning. And that's what a lot of people are doing when they just give their kids cash, or even when they have children buy life insurance policies in their own name. I had an experience some time ago where we proposed doing an ILIT, an irrevocable life insurance trust, and the client said, yeah, no, I'm too smart for you. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to pay your fee. I'm just going to give the money directly to my kids and they're going to buy the policy. So one of his two sons bought the policy, and when he got that $15,000, he deposited the money in a joint checking account with his wife, and he was the sole beneficiary on the policy. And Dad said, share half with your brother. But when Dad died, that guy's wife said, yeah, it wasn't worth divorcing you until now. And because they had paid the premiums out of a joint checking account, she walked away with half that life insurance money, and the other brother got zero. So that's just a crazy example. That was an actual thing that happened. You have to own that life insurance policy in a smart way.
Yeah, I was just going to add in there, life insurance remains the only asset class you can own privately, completely tax-free, even on the gains, but that only works when it's owned and structured correctly. It works in conjunction with other pieces. It's a really valuable asset class.
What I love about your trusts, the ones that you draft for our clients, is that they let the money flow to the people that we want it to flow to. And if there's people in that group that we don't want it to flow to, like the child that has an addiction, or the spouse that's the gold digger, or whatever. I mean, you just,
right.
we have rules here, and it's not just willy-nilly free money. And yeah, that's great. That's fabulous. Okay, well, so and I know you had one little idea before we had I love it, of doing your exclusion on December 31st, getting it in,
right,
and then doing one on January 1st.
Yeah, so often with funding a life insurance policy or business succession planning or other things, there's huge advantages in having those annual gifts occur back to back. So you take the $15,000 at the end of 2021 and the $16,000 on January 1st, 2022, so you get that double pop.
Yeah.
And it simplifies life, it makes it easier. Then you can go another 2 years and do back to back in that next cycle.
Okay, well, the next area that we dodged the bullet on with regard so far to in the House proposal was Grantor Trust. And Grantor Trusts are the kind of trust that we're talking about, insurance trust and other forms of transferring assets to the next generation while we're alive. Some of them while we're alive, some of them when we pass. But the Grantor Trust was threatened. It was actually on the table to being eliminated. So I guess, Rick, why don't you tell us what we know so far?
Well, first of all, it's off the table. They didn't take it away. There's some irony in the whole thing too. Originally, the Grantor Trust rules were a penalty. They were a penalty imposed to prevent people from being able to use a trust to take income at a lower tax bracket. So we're going to force the grantor to pay the taxes at the grantor's tax bracket. Well, then they said, oh, well, these trusts are at a low tax bracket. Let's hammer the trusts. Let's raise the tax rate on those. So a trust typically now accelerates to the top bracket very quickly, much faster than an individual. So it's to everyone's advantage to have the tax liability for a trust flow through to a person and pay it at the personal rate. They were going to take that away. They were going to say, nah, you have to pay it at the trust rate. So that's off the table. One of the significant things.
I'm surprised, by the way.
Yeah, I am surprised too. That's I don't know, it's a whipping boy of that end of the political spectrum. They always want to hammer people with trusts. How do we know? We want to take money from rich people. How do we know who they are?
Yeah,
They have trusts.
They're
So yeah, they're smart. And trusts are the engine that drive estate planning in the United States. If you don't have a trust, you're crazy, not doing your job. That's like, I don't know, driving without your pants on or something. It's just a dumb idea. Don't do it. Wear pants in public. It helps. So everybody's either has a trust or is going to have a trust if they have any amount of wealth, and taxing them has been a favorite thing to do. So a significant point, though, these grantor trusts, they were going to make them unavailable after a certain date. So trusts created before that date were grandfathered in. So those older trusts that had those grantor defective trust provisions in it would have become extremely valuable. So for the same reason, should I do this kind of planning? Yes.
Well, and there's one other part of this, okay, and all of the trusts. The idea is there is a level of asset protection that you get, and if you pass on that, if you don't do that, you lose that asset protection. And in our society today, being as litigious as it is, and you know this better than anyone in our little group right here, on how lawsuits are everywhere, and they're every day, and they're everybody, and this type of trust that we're talking about, you establishing for our clients, has that level of asset protection that if you don't have it, you miss out.
Right. So asset protection and good estate planning are two sides of the same coin. If you do one, you've done the other. It's important to note that a traditional revocable living trust, which is the entry-level trust that most people start with, that trust will not generally protect your assets while you are alive.
Right.
You have to die for that to protect anything, and death is a horrible asset protection strategy. If you can avoid it, I recommend that.
But we all are going
But we all are going to die,
yeah, so.
and so many of those revocable trusts that have an opportunity to protect assets after you're dead don't.
Yeah.
And so the in-laws or the substance abuse aidled generation 2 or generation 3 ends up destroying the wealth. There are things that you can do in a trust that will protect your assets while you're alive and when you die, and that takes careful and skillful planning.
And I would just comment on that. A well-done trust is worth investing in, because regardless of what the politicians do with what they propose with a grantor trust here, it becomes an asset that gains in value over time, even as you update it. The families of significant wealth that we here in America know the names of, their household symbols of success in the American dream, are symbols of that because they've successfully utilized well-crafted trusts as a tool over generations, and those trusts have become more valuable because they were invested in properly. It's worth getting the right kind of trust. It's worth getting one now and having that tool ready to go in preparation for where you're wanting to build.
And a properly designed trust, really just helps. It helps everybody. I mean, it there's no silver spoon here.
Right. Well, to put a point on it, traditional "I love you, sweetheart, here's the money when I'm dead" kind of estate planning, which even a lot of trusts do that,
Right.
have the effect of diluting, diverting, dissipating, destroying the wealth. It's a saying, it's a commonly recognized, but there's actually studies that back it up, that only 57% of the wealth survives generation 2 and only 10% survives generation 3. It's gone in 3 generations. Well, with an appropriately structured trust, we can throttle the burn rate, we can preserve the principal, we can grow it, we can protect it from the stupid stuff that generation 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 does, so we can protect the wealth from them, and we can protect them from the wealth so that they both thrive and prosper together.
Well, good. Well, thank you. And I just wanted to add two other things, that the spousal access trusts that we use a lot of times with the life insurance are still on the table, still available. And as Melodie said earlier, the step up in basis survived. So that's still, though, going to be a sticking point in the future, I think. I really believe that at some point in time that's going to get whacked. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a future episode, okay? We'll talk about the step up in basis. I want to conclude our podcast today by asking each of you this question. If you had one thing that you could say to your clients, Melodie, you have to do this before December 31st. What would it be? What advice would you say? You got to do this now. And Rick, I'll ask you the same thing. So Melodie, you go first.
Well, just based on my particular area of expertise in the philanthropic sector, this year we have a very unique opportunity at sunsetting to realize that deduction against 100% of AGI, even if you don't need that full deduction amount this year, remember that deductions roll forward. Look towards the next 5 or 6 years. Where is your wealth going? What are you going to do? Because you can maximize the value of an asset by making a donation now, realizing a larger deduction which may roll forward. Now that is applicable for cash and cash equivalent deductions. There's some interesting nuances to that. Some donations don't qualify, donations to donor advised funds, for example, but no, donations to operating charities, donations to fiscally sponsored funds qualify. There's a wide variety of flexibility that we can do to preserve the family's intent in making that gift and do some fun planning. But I would say carefully look at the needs for deductions, for diversification, for taking some of the riskier bets off the table and turning that into an immediate gain by utilizing that deduction and rolling it forward.
And you can't make that donation on January 1st,
Nope,
right?
that
And
goes
get the
away.
deduction for this year.
Yep, it goes away. So you can maximize the value of a gift even if you're not utilizing that at the end of the year by making it this year and rolling that value forward.
And Legacy can handle some
Legacy
gifts?
can handle that. I will say that there's enough tax planning going on that we are running out of the runway of new gifts that we can accept. I know Fidelity, Schwab, Morgan Stanley, all of the bigger players in that field have cutoff dates for making donations before year end. So this is something that you need to think about and act
so
on
it's
now.
It's Legacy Global, and you can get to them.
LegacyGlobal.org.
.org.
And yeah, come talk to us about the complicated crypto stuff too.
There you go.
We
Okay.
have a lot of crypto stuff.
Rick,
going on.
you're up.
So, I kind of am holistic in my planning approach. I rarely like to say one thing because every one thing we do connects to all these other things. And I'm very much about being conscious of how does the one thing we do affect all the other things. But I'm going to kind of hit on two things. Number one, we've already said, if you have in process a plan to grandfather in that lifetime exclusion, finish that. Don't stop.
The lifetime, the 11.7.
The 11.7. Or even some people are, well, I don't have 11.7, I'm only going to do 4 million.
Right.
Do your 4 million.
Right.
Get it in. Grandfather it in. But the other piece of that is because we think we have some breathing room, even if you don't have time now to squeeze that in by December 31, do it early next year. I'm continually frustrated and sometimes surprised that people call late in December with the question, is it too late? Can I do this yet this year? And too often the answer is, yeah, it's too late, dude. You waited too long. Don't do that. So start early next year. And so for people that maybe they're looking at their calendar and all the things they have to do before the holidays are upon them, and they're thinking, wow, there's no way I can make that happen before the end of the year. Well, then come up with an agenda, set a plan for what you're going to do in the first part of next year.
And one of the things that we do together is we do an estate analysis for our clients. And I highly recommend that you get into the queue on that. We've got a lot of folks that are in the queue right now that we're working with, trying to get them out as soon as possible. But get into that queue, and one of the things that your firm does for our clients that do the estate analysis, and by the way, you can get that on the our website epmez.com, and you will review their estate planning documents.
Right.
And you personally do it.
Yes.
And I love that. I love that service, and our clients love that. And you review what they have, and you give them an honest opinion. Hey, it's good. Don't move it.
Yeah. In fairness, we just did one where we came back and said, this trust meets these goals. Is that what you want? They said, yeah, and we did not change their existing trust.
So there were but more than often we get 10, 15, 20 years ago they did something and
they've outgrown it.
And things have changed. Life has changed. Status has changed. We've seen we had a client that just came to us again recently. First time we looked at him and he did his estate plan, he was worth $10 million. Now he's worth $35 million.
Yeah.
Lucky investments.
Well, this kind of was made earlier. People would think, well, I don't have $10 million, I only have $4 million. We're in an inflationary cycle. Just wait.
Yeah.
That 4 is going to be 10. The guy with 10, it's going to be 25. The guy with 1, it's going to be 4. So wherever you are, if you have wealth in an inflationary cycle, unless you're just crazy make bad economic choices, it's going to go up with the market.
So let's plan for that.
Plan for that.
Yeah. What one thing should our clients, because we share clients, but what one thing should our clients absolutely do before year end?
So one thing, I got a couple, several.
Okay,
but,
couple's all right.
But I guess, before year end, take advantage of some of the tax advantages, like some oil and gas partnerships. I know that always comes to the year end, and get those deductions for the intangible drilling costs. If you can,
which would offset your income.
That will offset your income.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of income. I know we have a lot of doctors, high income earning clients that want those deductions, especially if you're over the $326,000 threshold. If you're a joint taxpayer, you want to be sure to get down and into the 24% tax bracket. But yeah, you can definitely, or if you're doing a big Roth conversion, use some of those partnerships. And be wary, make sure you're picking ones that are solid and not just doing it for the tax deduction, but also for the investment. And if you have any questions on that, they can call me, and I can connect them with a source that can help them with that. So that would be like one thing that I guess year end. The other thing is I just see a lot of volatility right now in the market. I know today the market was down about 630 points, the Dow, and it's just little hair trigger events that are changing things. Powell just hints at something, and the market's greatly affected. So it just feels like 1999 type era when just things are, Greenspan, I remember when he'd say anything, it's just up and down, and that's kind of how I feel it is right now. So just volatility, it's very volatile. And be sure to diversify. Because your portfolio, I would see so many clients with huge amounts in large cap stocks, primarily in the same stocks, and just kind of they're hanging their entire retirement on these same asset sectors. So be sure to diversify not only with the asset, but also the management style. Maybe get some trend, there's so many different ways to change your management style and your asset classes that you're picking.
Well, and I know you wrote that report just for our clients about a month ago called If I Had $1 Million. And I know that's something that we encourage our clients to read. I think it was an excellent article on taking risk off the table, and we need to have that for diversification. We need to have some risk and we need to have some safety. And I thought that was an excellent article, and I encourage our listeners, viewers, to call and ask for that article. To call the office and just
Yeah,
ask
we'll
for
give
that
it to
article.
you for free. And just, again, I feel like it's time to take some chips off the table. I know a lot of clients have made a ton in cryptocurrencies or just the market's been good, but you don't want to be stuck when it tanks. And that's what the article talks about, is what happens if you are starting retirement, you're in retirement, and we get a big crash. It could hugely affect how much if your funds are going to last or not. So we'll show you ways to make sure that doesn't happen to you.
Okay, my final comment before we close today is what should you do before year end? You have to do your gift allowance. If you have any inclination to gift to your kids or to your grandkids or to your great-grandkids if you're fortunate enough to have them, do those gifts now and do up to the maximum of $15,000. Get that out of your estate. Once it's out of your estate and it's to them, based on, and you don't have to give them the money so they can go out and buy, candy and gum and stuff like that. You can put it in trust and give it to them in trust and let them have it for their future, for when they buy their home or when they go to college or when they start their dental practice or whatever, and they have money and cash to do that. But make those gifts now. If you miss that gift and you want to do it, and you wake up on January 1st and say, I got to give that, I got to make those gifts, you missed the boat, because you can't do it on January 1st for this year. You can do it for next year, and you can do the $16,000, you can do that. And, that is a great opportunity right now to do those gift allowances. And I strongly encourage you, if you're going to do the leveraging with the insurance, instead of giving them $1, you're going to give them $5 through leveraging. I would strongly encourage you to set up a checking account now and put the money in the checking account for the purpose of paying the premium next year, because we probably can't get the policy for you that fast, between now and the end of the year. One other little side note. One of the major players in the long-term care world, we call it Leveraged Care Solutions. And by the way, you can get the Leveraged Care Solution report by going onto our website and just asking for it. We'll send it to you, explaining to you what Leveraged Care Solutions are, which are the alternative to traditional long-term care, which has kind of gone by the way of the dinosaur now. And these asset-based care or leveraged care solutions are the rage. One of the main players is having a rate increase. We just heard today on January 31st, or the first couple months anyway of the year, and it's going to be about a 20-25% rate increase. So if that's any of interest to you at all, call us, get some examples on how it works, and get in before the rate increase. All you have to do is get your application in, and you avoid that. And this plan is 100% fully guaranteed, so it'll never have a rate increase. And that's one of the big downsides to traditional long-term care, is they always keep increasing the rates. And this one here, you can never have it increase. So it's pretty cool.
Kind of to build on that, in an inflationary market, everybody's prices are going up. So whatever you're going to do, especially if you're sitting on cash, whether it's taking care of your long-term care or remodeling your kitchen or doing your estate plan, if you're sitting on cash, move now, buy now, because the price is going to be more later.
Yeah, that's
Just do it.
Just do it. Make it happen.
Well, listen, thank you so much for watching today, and Melodie, thank you so much always. Good news on your side, I hear. So Melodie's engaged. We're excited about that. And Rick, thank you for always being here and being a good friend.
Oh, pleasure.
And Todd, thank you as well.
Thanks all.
Thank you, Dave.
Take care.